welcome back to the McKenna channel. It's good to have you guys. I've got a lot to talk about in this video. It's a lot of analysis, a lot of things to sort of unpack. So the place I really want to start is after Arsenal's 2-0 win against Newcastle, talking about a video I was actually going to make earlier this week that I didn't get the chance to. And the title of the video was going to be something along the lines of Arsenal need a hard man, or Arsenal need to toughen up. Now, that wasn't some sort of toxic way of saying that Arsenal are in some way not they're a beautiful team, but they're not quite good enough. It was a way of me just talking about the next stage for Arsenal, what it is that would have pushed them completely over the line in this Man City title race. Because there's a lot of people trying to discredit Arsenal right now. There are a lot of people who built up and built up and built up because they knew they were going to try and knock this team down at some point. And the conspiracy theorists amongst us in the Arsenal world maybe feel that things are a little bit tough on Arsenal in terms of analysis, in terms of the way that people have spoken about the side. But the people who listen to their opposition, the people who listen to the people who criticize, I can very often work out what it is. So what I'm going to say is, this Arsenal team are fantastic. They have had great balance, and at the start of the season, they certainly had incredible balance. 50 points in the start of the season is an incredible record for any side, right? But in the second half of the season, there has been a couple of opportunities for sides to get at them. And we found that there were a couple of, they weren't cracks, but in an unusual World Cup season, which now feels so long ago, you start to see that there are dynamics that the side need to fulfill. And one of those, for me, at least with this Arsenal team, is small levels of upgrades in terms of team opposition, and this is where I want to say this, fearing Arsenal. Do any of the Premier League teams, do any of the teams in Europe fear Arsenal? Now, you could have said earlier in the season people were hesitant. Maybe they anticipated playing Arsenal. Maybe they knew what Arsenal were going to come with and they found that hard to stop. But that's different to fear. And there were times where you could see that people feared Saka, people fear Martinelli. I think people fear Gabriel Jesus to an extent, and I'm not really sure they fear Trossard, but I think to an extent, players probably know what he's capable of, and so therefore, and also because he's kind of a connecting bit, but they fear Odegaard in a sense. They don't fear him in a sense of, oh, what are the repercussions going to be? But they worry. Do you know what I mean? But they need to fear that. They need to fear this Arsenal side in terms of maturity, in terms of who they're going up against, and to an extent it's about respect as well. I don't think Arsenal have had the respect yet, probably because a lot of people don't believe they're an established team, or didn't believe they're an established team going into this season. Now, previously Xhaka was seen as a hard man. Partey was definitely seen as one of the hard men. And I think that to an extent, Jorginho's experience in the midfield was important. And one person they've missed since, obviously, he went out was Saliba. And since Saliba has not been in the team, and in the times he's not been in the team, this was the first time they kept a clean sheet in something like 18 games for Arsenal without Saliba in the side. Talk to me about that a little bit. Like, when you have a combination of two centre-backs and you realise how important centre-backs are in modern football, not only just in terms of, being defenders, but also in terms of the whole shape of the side, where they move, the pushing and the pressing of each team. Those leaders, those people who can read the game, the people who understand when to foul, when to push the opposition, when to try and, get under their skin, all these kind of things. Saliba's a huge part of that. And I think Gabriel is still a fantastic player, and I think Rob Holding is still a suitable, I don't want to call him an understudy, it feels a bit disrespectful, but you kind of get what I'm going for there, right? With all of that, they have missed Saliba. Not only in terms of position, not only in terms of leadership, but also in terms of hard men out on the field. People don't fear Rob Holding in the same way, because you can tell that Rob Holding fears them to an extent. And I like his confidence at times. I really enjoyed some of his cuter play, but I'm not talking about being cute here. And I'm not talking about, not having experience or anything. I'm saying it's the edge that Arsenal need. What is it if we push these guys a little bit? Because when I was at Anfield watching Arsenal, the fear within Anfield that Arsenal will go and score a load of goals was nothing to do with fearing Arsenal inherently. It was that Arsenal would be able to exploit the opposition's, Liverpool in this case, vulnerabilities. They were smart, but they're not seen as they're not seen as the side who impose themselves on the opposition. They constrict, they move, and they massage the game to an extent, but they don't strangle. And the big sides, especially Man City this season, and Liverpool in previous seasons, Manchester United at their very peak, even Arsenal at their very best, were just seen as powerful along with that imperious level. And I'm not sure that Arsenal have had that so much. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, this is a criticism. It's not a criticism of what Arsenal are doing, but it does show in this Newcastle game. Funnily enough, this Newcastle game that would have followed that video would have been along the lines of, well, look at them fighting back. Look at Nketiah when he comes on, pushing one of the opposition. Look at Gabriel Jesus getting in the face of Kieran Trippier. Look at them being adversarial. with that, that's important. Not only does it show frustration in the title race, that they are competitive at their very core, but also that they understand the need to try and be this way as well. Too often previously, I think people were a bit obsessed with Arsenal being that team within the league, like the people's side. You know, everything to do with AFTV and all these other things. They were seen as representing the people. They were seen as, you could not put them through any criticism because there was an element of, and I think within the fan base as well at that time, not always, though within the fan base, insecurity, vulnerability, an element that there was a soft underbelly to an extent of this Arsenal team, and that has been gotten rid of in recent years. There is no longer this hysteria around the side that was so easy to poke the bee's nest with. That doesn't exist in the same way anymore. And maybe it's transformed a little bit into maybe like a kind of, well, we told you we were coming sort of thing, but you get what I'm saying, Arsenal fans, right? Like, you understand what I'm going for with this. I'm not saying it as a criticism, I'm saying it as the next step. And that's what's weird. Like, I could sit here, and I'm sure there are plenty of people going, Arsenal haven't been hard enough, Arsenal haven't done this, haven't done that. I could sit here and try and do that kind of salacious video, right? And basically go, oh, they've not been this, they're not. What I'm saying is, where are they moving to? Because clearly, Mikel Arteta said this week, Arsenal have been digging in. That takes an element of, how can I put it, like application, an element of substance about you as a team. You don't just get that out of nowhere. And on top of that, it's then satisfying to see that in a game where in the first 5 to 10 minutes, this team are under the cosh, they go the other way, and basically Odegaard has got this shot where he like kind of passes it into the back of the net. It's almost too slow for the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper's almost on the floor by the time that the ball is there. Like, it's strange the way that Odegaard shoots. He didn't shoot with an incredible amount of power, though I'm sure it is faster than any shot that I could have, but he didn't shoot with what looks like, you know, like an absolute net ripper. It's just, oh yeah, there it sort of rolled in. And I like that. Like, I love Odegaard. I think he's a great player. But it's weird. Like, this Arsenal side, again, imposed themselves on Newcastle, but Newcastle still were in the game. And even at 2-0, because of the experiences in recent weeks, it didn't seem ever as if Newcastle weren't in the game. Having said that, this is still, and I want to address the other side of the spin that has been going on. You know, if we go down Spin Alley with all the Man City stuff, is a lot of people have been talking about Man City, and to an extent they've been deriding everything that Arsenal have done. Arsenal are worthy title contenders, not title winners necessarily, though I did call them, over in that corner of my room, worthy title winners, which I think they are, but they're worthy contenders at this point because they're still pushing City. And the disrespect with which people came at Arsenal, I think, was unsubstantiated. It wasn't founded in anything because it was more based on the emotion that they wanted to feel, or the way that they wanted to see Arsenal go, where they thought Arsenal were meant to be, rather than looking at the facts of what Arsenal have actually done this season. And too many people had tried to build Arsenal up and then knock them back down. Too many people had, oh, we need to get rid of this entire side. They weren't willing to stick with a project. So let the disrespect they showed that Arsenal team be as loud as the praise now. And to add to that, I think quite a few people derided the idea of bringing in Jorginho, an experienced, calm head. And today, I've got to admit, when I looked at that midfield, I texted a few friends and I went, oh, there might be a draw in this. And you know what? There probably could have been. But I thought to myself, there could be a draw in this. There could be something here where Arsenal or Newcastle managed to impose themselves. Because I looked at the midfield and thought, oh, is that too light? Is it physical enough? When you got Xhaka in there, sure, but do they have an element of when Newcastle want to counter-attack with pace or when they want to get physical, what happens then? Arsenal stood up to this Newcastle side. A Newcastle side that tried to bully and try to impose themselves on any opposition. And other teams have got sucked into it. And there are other sides who know how to play it. So when I'm talking about Arsenal this season, I'm talking with an element of, this is still a process. Stage 3 of 5. And we knew there was that 5-point process. Maybe, we don't know what it is exactly, but we know there is a 5-point process. So tell me what it is, Arsenal fans, when I look at a really formidable front line, when I look at them being able to sub off Odegaard and bring on another attacking player, I think in the shape of Nketiah. When I see them bring on Partey for Jorginho or Xhaka or whoever you want to have in that central midfield. And also when I look at someone like Carvalho. Now, I've been talking about Rob Holding a lot in this, but is it any coincidence that when you bring in Carvalho, a player who is brought again, this point in the season when they needed the reinforcements, that they get this kind of result? No. Now, again, let's not say that's disrespect to Rob Holding. Let's say that's a compliment to Carvalho. He's a fantastic player. I mean, I wouldn't say he's yet shown us he's got consistency in these kind of things. And I know he's had limited minutes in this Arsenal team anyway, but you get what I'm saying here? Like, there are elements where you go, that's where this is going. And I wouldn't be upset with that. I understand this was also a limited window within which Arsenal could strike. And, if you fall away, you fall away. You've not choked. All this toxic stuff of like, you've either choked or you've stumbled or whatever the phrasing is around. It's ridiculous, stupid phrasing that people like to use because it makes for good headlines or good clickbait or good thumbnails. What do you do after that? What is it how do you recover from that? How are Arsenal going to move forward? Because they had these sweet, sweet praise highs and these lows, or these kind of mid-level lows. Now, they can't finish lower than second anymore. That was thanks to this points total, which they just got against Newcastle. But it's special, right? There's something going on here at Arsenal. I don't think it's over. But I do question the window within which they struck. And I think if they are to compete next season, they need people in the games to be able to help them compete. Now, that's where I'll just finish on this Jorginho point and the Kavaya point. These are both people who back up, but are also people who could start in that starting 11 and be pushing for that starting 11 as well, even though you probably got Saliba and Gabriel at centre-back and Partey and Xhaka very consistently starting in midfield. Within that, you need people to push that set of four. Jorginho coming in and being whatever he's being, I'm not saying that therefore he's not hard. I think he's a very sort of nasty player to play. I think he's the kind of player who people hate to play against in the Premier League, and that's why Pep wanted him. That's why, who was the guy who came from Napoli? You remember who I mean, the ex-Napoli manager who the Chelsea fans didn't like. And then other people wanted him too. He suits managing a game. He suits sort of, if you can't get physical, get smart. And maybe Arsenal will get smart this summer, but I still feel like if they do bring in someone into the midfield, it doesn't have to be Declan Rice, it can be anyone. But someone in there who can impose, but also bring them forward, is going to take this team on. Because that's what you need. Liverpool had Hendo, they have Van Dijk, they had all these kind of players. Man City have Rodri, they have, name any of those centre-backs, they're all incredibly big people. And they also have a couple of other people who are willing to put the boot in. And the weird thing is that in this, I've left out Zinchenko, I've left out Gabriel Jesus. Both those players they brought in are experienced. They're not hard. I mean, Zinchenko is definitely a hard man, but he's not hard in a Milner type sense, though he is tough. Like Jesus, he's good, but he's not tough. He's nasty playing it, so he's not tough. They're both experienced, but they're not tough. And sometimes bringing in experience is good, but you also need to bring in that edge. And I think that's where Arsenal go next. Where do they get that edge? And is he young? Is he older? Which one is it? Just has to be someone who's willing to impose themselves a little bit on the game. I think that's what's coming next. Arsenal, you're still very much within the title. And you push Man City. There's still some trip hazards here for Man City. They've been closer than you were to Newcastle in this game to other opposition. Like the narrow win against Fulham, the narrow win this weekend, all these kind of things. So let me know, what do you think in the comments below? And I'll chat to you in a while. Much love. Bye.